This is In Between Them, a podcast where we uncover what it really felt like to be a child of divorce. I am Shannon Darrow, and each episode brings honest stories from brave adults who lived through this as children. This is In Between Them. Let's get going. Well, welcome, Brian, to the In Between Them podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. And I know we've known each other for, almost like 30 years at this point. And ironically, I don't really know very much about your childhood and your parents' divorce and how that kind of came about and all of that. So I thank you for sitting down to share your story with me. But before we jump into that,
Of course.
go back in time, can you just give me a little bit of where you're at now? What do you do? Do you have kids? Where do you live? Just a little bit to kind of paint a picture of your current life.
Paint a picture. I live in a beautiful one-bedroom apartment in Southern California, the size of most people's bathrooms. Um, it's a good area. I work in Fontana next door as a school psychologist. I have two kids that my ex-wife tries to take from me probably once or twice a week. Otherwise, it's great outside and life's good.
Well, thank you. So take me back to, so you have a brother and a sister, correct?
Yes.
And you are the middle child?
Yeah, Jamie is 2 years older, and then my sister Sydney, or that's my daughter, sorry. My sister Corey is 2 years under.
Okay. So how old were you when your parents got divorced? But more than that, kind of tell me the story of how you found out that they were getting divorced. Was it something where you saw it coming? Was it something where they sat you down and talked to you guys? Like, how did that all come about and how old were you?
I think I started realizing in 6th grade, so about, I would say 11 or 12, probably 11. I would just hear yelling. They weren't affectionate. My dad was in and out of the house a lot, work, always at the gym. Mom took care of us, brother and sister. We just kind of did our thing. So I would say 6th grade. And then 7th, we would hear them cussing and stuff downstairs. So I would go on the stairs and peek my head in to kind of eavesdrop to see what I could hear. And it sounded like he was cheating on her. And then 7th grade, I don't know why I remember this, but it was Uncle Buck in the bonus room. And my dad was screaming in his room, and my mom had both of his ankle, and she was biting his ankle, and he was like yelling. But my dad's a big guy, so he just got out of the bonus room to kind of see what was going on. And had him locked in. And she was hitting him, across the chest and smacking him up. And he was just like trying to ask us to help him off, but we were kind of stunned. And then we just went back to the bonus room, closed the door, and started finishing the movie Uncle Buck.
Wow.
I remember the movie, Shannon. It's kind of weird.
Well, that's kind of like a massively
So
pivotal.
that's yeah, my memory's bad. My sister used to remember that story. My brother did too. And then over the years, they both don't remember that story anymore. I remember it like it was a week ago.
Wow.
So
That's incredible.
yeah, I don't even remember what
So,
Uncle Buck was about. I just remember watching the movie.
yeah, John Candy.
Mm, yeah.
Yep. Um,
And my
s-
mom was kind of smacking him up at the top. He was a big guy, but anyhow, sorry.
no, you're fine. So then, so that happens. How much longer until they actually split up? And what happens to you guys? Where does your dad stay in the house? Does your mom move, or does your mom, like, what happens at that point?
I don't remember the timelines off. My mom, she left for a couple of months and then he came back. I think the Uncle Buck at 7th grade was the icing on the cake. So that after that, my mom left. We stayed with my father. She went to an apartment in Anaheim Hills. Um, and then we stayed with him. And that's when, for me, was awful.
Yeah. So you were with him 100% of the time?
I was with him for a couple of months until so then 8th grade, I was with him. We would see her a lot. We just lived there.
Okay.
Um, and he came home late, so we kinda got to do what we wanted to do, which was cool because we were 8th graders. So I lived there till I think freshman year. Um, Sister was fine. I think my brother was fine. In a nutshell, Shannon, I got in trouble for a lot of things, so it was very annoying. And my dad was kind of he wasn't a good person. And then I think freshman year, he kicked me out of the house, had 3 cops come knock on the door and told me I had like an hour to get out. So I got my trash bags. I'm on my driveway, and then Ryan Judd, who was my neighbor, came by driving across, and it was funny because he acknowledged seeing me. Like, "What the heck are you doing, Brian, with trash bags in your hands?" And now I don't talk to him anymore, but he at least saw me getting kicked out, which was weird.
Yeah. Wow. So then you went to live with your mom by yourself? Did your sister and brother
I
stay?
lived with brother and sister stayed the whole time. I actually went and lived with the another family who my mom was dating, and I was sleeping on their couch, and then my mom would come over on the weekends.
Wow. That's
So
incredible.
that was odd. I was in high school. Yeah, it's weird. Very weird being on someone's couch. Um, but it that was the option at the time. And then shortly thereafter, I don't know what grade Shannon in high school, my mom got an apartment, and then I moved in with her and slept on the couch outside. She had a one bedroom.
Okay. So, and then is that where you stayed until you graduated from high school?
No, she ended up moving into a house with this guy, and we lived with his kids as well. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name, so I'm trying to be respectful.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Um, but it wasn't until can I tell you the interesting story that literally they had a so we would shower. I would shower, the brother would shower, the older daughter would shower, and my mom didn't realize that the bathroom had clear glass. So months, a year into this, she came in and saw the bathroom and saw me showering, and she about cried. And she's like, "I can't believe you're showering like this." And so we moved out. Then we
Wow.
went to so she literally sold the house, like she left because of this. Basically, it was this: older daughter would come do her hair, and here I am, just behind a clear glass, just showering. And to me, it was almost like normal what you just do. And my mom was like, "No, Brian, we can't. This is a no go." And we didn't think to put like curtains up. She just straight up sold the house,
Oh my
which
gosh.
landed us in a condo over by Jacob Franco in high school. That
Yeah.
was like junior, senior year ish.
So after
So yeah,
after you left your dad's house or he kicked you out, what was that relationship like? Did you see him? Did you interact with him?
no, I didn't start. I don't think I talked to him, Shannon, from like sophomore year till or freshman. I forget when I got kicked out, but I didn't talk to him until college. I don't
Okay.
know how many years that was 4, 5, 6 years, maybe.
So
So I
your
didn't talk to
siblings?
him. I would see my sisters at
Yeah, good.
no, no, go ahead, Shannon.
No, so your sister and your brother stayed the whole time with your dad as you were bouncing around with your mom.
Yeah. And it was in high school. So I think at that time, Shannon, during that era, I think we just thought it was kind of chaotic but normal. I mean, it wasn't, we weren't, no one's doing drugs in the house. My dad's cheating with multiple women. My mom decided to take a stand, which I think it was very awesome of her to do. And I don't see a lot of people doing what she did. Unfortunately, though, when she did that, she ruined her life. She
What do
lost
you
everything. But
Yeah.
I give her and she means the world. What do I mean? So when she was married to my father, her only friends was women on in my dad's family. Her best friend was a girl named Kim. When she wasn't really working, she didn't need to. When she divorced, she lost that side of the family, never saw them again. Essentially went to an apartment, didn't get the house, and basically, had to start working. So it was a struggle for her.
Wow. So you said you reconnected with your dad, and I don't mean connected in a significant way, but you communicated with him sometime in college. What has become of that relationship now?
Now, TMI, I'm currently not speaking with him. I think we had a falling out a couple of months ago. We've been after in college, we kind of, I don't want to say made up. When I got married the second time, I tried to do him a solid, so I asked him to be my best man, just to kind of um, acknowledge, like, "Hey, you screwed up, but let's move on." I think he really appreciated that, but we've never really been close. I don't think that's a. I think I think the way he grew up was very influential on his life, the way his father treated him. And even though we had TVs and computers, throughout his whole life, he just never put in the time to look in the mirror and say, "Hey, I screwed up. I've done this. Let me fix it." He just kept with his own mindset till this day. And I have to just break free from that. I just can't do it anymore.
So did you ever have a conversation with your mom or your dad as adult or as a child about any of that transpired when you were younger, or was it all just kind of we moved on?
My dad never spoke of it. He still doesn't speak about it to this day. My mom's dead, but before that, she wanted to. I've never seen someone hate an individual in my life as much as she did. But I totally understand where her point of view is. She just hated my father. S- No, I was just when living with her, it was just I didn't mention my dad. I didn't like him myself, so it's kind of like me and my mom understood each other. And we didn't really. She would badmouth him, a lot, but I just kind of dismissed it at a certain point because I agreed with half the things she was saying.
Yeah. Yeah, it's different when you had the interaction with him that you had versus having some loving relationship with him and then her talking like that. It's a totally different situation. Um, what
Shannon, you're cutting
was
out
the
just a little
different
bit, but keep going.
Okay. What was the difference between your relationship and kind of the dynamic that you just presented versus your brother and your sister and your dad and your mom?
It's a good question. My mother um, was an outstanding human being. She had the best heart. Oh, okay. So my mom was great. She had some challenges with like mental health towards the end, but my mom's relationship with me was very close. Um, I am who I am today because of her. If she wouldn't have taken me in when my dad kicked me out, or she didn't put up with my stuff, I would have probably gone down a dark path of drugs and stuff like that. My brother, my dad did everything for him. He was, they named each other the same name. Jamie could do no wrong. I got blamed for everything, which didn't help. Um, my brother and father don't have a good relationship. They deal with each other. Um, the ironic part of my brother is he genuinely has no memory of our childhood. I think I managed the best out of the three, believe it or not. My sister's relationship with my mom was rocky. My mom took my side over the other two because of the feeling of what my dad was doing to me, which was he just yelled a lot, no physical abuse, but emotional, just way too much. Um, and she couldn't stand it. And I picked up on it. My brother didn't, and sister didn't. So I had my mom's side with me, even if I did something wrong. And then they took on my dad. But unfortunately, my dad was um, just not a, didn't express himself emotionally. So my sister ended up resenting my mom. So there's a lot of blame. My dad feels really guilty and awful, but he just won't look at himself in the mirror and say something like, I messed up. It's my fault. I should have done better. There's just no accountability.
How do you know your dad feels guilty?
I think one time, probably around the um, before the wedding, where I put him in the wedding, he had talked to me, and uh, my fiance at the time said he pulled her aside, and he's got Parkinson's, so that was exacerbated, and it almost sounded like he was crying to my fiance about how bad he feels, et cetera, et cetera. And then he told me once or twice in conversations over a dinner table, um, things came up over dinner table that the family was speaking about, and it just reassured me and made him feel terrible of what we were hearing.
Hmm.
So I do think he has a lot of guilt. I just don't. I think his pride, and he's just too stubborn, and I just his ego gets in the way.
Well, and if you alluded to the fact that he had a difficult father from, his own experience, and so there's probably
Say that
something.
again, Shannon.
You
Say
mentioned
that.
your dad's dad and how that was a difficult relationship. And so that probably impacts, his inability to be accountable or admit anything.
I agree with that, Shannon. I do. I think at some point, though, as you age, you got to take into current life, emotional maturity, and stuff, and so forth, and maybe just push through that barrier. I'm not any way, shape, or form how I treat my kids is not how I was treated. So,
Yeah.
but I do think I give him a little bit of grace, just because of his childhood. In a sense, he made it sound like his dad was just um, a big dick. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and I think what that tells us, if you think about it from the perspective of your child is getting married, right? You really want your child to be looking at all the parents involved to know what is coming potentially with their own marriage. I think that, yes, like you're saying, people can evolve and actually break the cycle and be different. But there are also a lot of signs, and you're hoping that you raise your child in a way that they're able to kind of see these things so they don't end up in situations where the person that they married was treated terribly or certain, anything that you can imagine that impacts them to where they're now in a marriage with someone that's very difficult when it's things you can see. You can you can see how people's parents are if they're difficult, if they're, whatever. And I think that it kind of comes back to the way we're talking to our kids about, not repeating things. Um how do you think that entire relationship with your dad, from really seeing him and your mom interact in a very unideal way, and then getting kicked out of the house by your dad. What do you think that changed in you? What do you think that did from like a, you know, young high school kid that had that not happened, maybe things would have been different for you?
Shannon, you're breaking up a little bit. Yeah, I don't want. There's too many questions there, Shannon. So let me see if I can follow that. I didn't mind getting kicked out of the house initially. I think was one of the best things that happened for me. Um, I didn't realize why I got kicked out of the house until about 15 years ago, and to see my dad's face when the kind of cat out of the bag came out, it was a very good feeling for me. Going back, my mom treated me and gave me the emotional support. So I think him kicking me out saved my life in a sense, because it stuck me with a parent who made me feel loved unconditionally. And unfortunately, my sister and brother were the byproduct of my father's upbringing, and they have some deep issues themselves. So we all three have issues. I would say functionally, I probably handle it the best, even though I did some dumb things along the way. So I kind of thanked him. That was one of the things that allowed me to put him in my wedding was thanking him for like kicking me out because he was such a jerk.
Wow. That's pretty amazing to see the benefit of that happening, you know? And what a wonderful thing, but that's can't be very typical, you know? Um, but that's at least a perspective that can give you some peace versus carrying that. Um, I'm sure there's
Yeah,
instances
no, it's
as you navigated relationships and marriages, what do you think that helped you as you were, considering marriage and finding people? Do you think that you took from that things that made you make better decisions, or do you think that some of the obstacles in your own marriages have come from that?
I've been divorced twice, Shannon. I think that there's not a lot of parallels in both divorces, but I think I did take on unfortunately some of my dad's. I think I fall into the pattern, his pattern of just I don't know what the words are, but not seeking out the best partner, seeking out what's available because of low self esteem and stuff like that. So my dad, I believe, is on his fourth marriage. It could be five. I forget. I've already done two, and I don't want to do it again. But so I think I've learned from him in not the most productive ways. I don't know if I blame him for that. It takes a lot to self-reflect, and I just don't think people in that era had the ability to or the wherewithal or the mindfulness like people do now. So, um, I don't
Yeah.
know if that answered the question or if I got sidetracked.
No, I think that, something that you mentioned was low self-esteem in selecting partners. But how do you think, if you reflect further, do you think that low self-esteem is kind of was with you since forever, as long as you can remember, or do you think it was a product of kind of what happened with your parents? Because I would think that regardless of if you don't want to be with your dad, if you're thankful that the situation in a sense saved you and put you with the parent who cared for you and loved you and all of that, but still being kicked out by a dad is rejection to a degree. Whether we're thankful for it or not, it still is. So do you think that low self-esteem is tied into that, or do you think that that's come from other things along the way in your life?
No, I hate to blame. I think low self-esteem started with him. I think there was some attachment issues and just too many things going on with the bio sex parent and then the kid. So I think there's a lot of things there. I think over the years, just I probably saw how he went in one relationship. got into another one, got into another one. So that's not a divorce per se. That's just him as a human being. I think I saw that and maybe just adopted it. But um, so I guess the divorce has hurt and stunt in some. I think more than the divorce though was just him as a father, just having a knucklehead father.
Right.
And then the divorce, I thought overall, for all intents and purposes, it benefited me. I got my mom and didn't have to hang out with this guy,
Yeah. Did you
even
ever
though I was on the couch or
Yeah.
you know.
Did you ever have to be in a place where both your parents would be as you guys were growing up, or were your parents pretty separated from, like, sports or things you did at school? How did they handle, still co-parenting in a sense?
Yeah, there was no co-parenting. I don't even know if you'd call it parallel. I wasn't the best athlete, so when I did football at Esperanza, my mom would come. Not to make things sad, Shannon, but I sucked. But one thing that I haven't told many people because it's just kind of embarrassing is when I was in high school, even though I was like I got in at like sometimes on like kickoffs and special teams, but I would look up to see in the stands if I could see him in there. That was more of like a sad part of it. But my brother didn't play sports, my sister didn't play sports, so there was no communication. If there was communication, it'd be through the kids. But we never saw mom and dad were essentially never in the same room until, from my memory, it was when I got my master's degree, and they were both there. And I don't think we took a picture together. No, it was separate. But they were there when I got my master's, and that was cool.
That's
A little
pretty
bit
amazing.
awkward.
Yeah, but pretty great that they
Yeah,
could
yeah, I
they
know. So we came and well, my mom was so uncomfortable. She said she kind of promised me, "Don't let him take a picture with me, stay by me." Um, she was nervous because at the time I was very social and then ADHD. So that I bounced around a lot uh, in high school, but no, in college and stuff, she was still that. Um, yeah, so I think that was the first time. And there's only been I don't even know, Shannon, how many times after that.
Yeah. Have you worked through I it's weird. I mean, as you're talking, I'm kind of shocked by how you don't have a lot of anger towards your dad, and I would expect you to have more anger or to at least have instances or examples of times you were really angry, and I'm not getting that from you. I'm getting a very, like, I accept that he's this way, and I'm going to be better, and I'm going to be different, and that you protected
Yeah,
it's your mom, because you knew how she felt, which really isn't your responsibility or your role, but I think it's just the nature of what kids do. But did you have anger that you had to work
yeah.
to get to this point?
So there were times I wanted to physically harm him. Um, I think one of the precursors of him kicking me out was he got his master's degree, and he was his just smuck um, picture around the house, and I went and put guns to his like kind of like that, and I drew it. And that was one of the last straws, with the exception of what got me kicked out. So don't think it was that. But the only time, Shannon, I've ever wanted to physically harm that man was when my mom died. There was a $25,000 something from her work, life insurance. And yeah, I was the executor. So we were getting money and narrowing things down. And then I thought I had covered everything. And then like a year later, some 25,000 thing came and it was sent to my dad. I didn't think it was going to be an issue. Like, give me the money and I'll put it in the pot. And he said no. And I wasn't going to let that slide. So after months of negotiating, I asked my brother and sister if this was okay, and they weren't happy, but they said, "Fine." I got the $25,000 and I sent it right over to my mom's boyfriend.
Wow.
And yeah, in hindsight, Shannon, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that, but I should have just kept it between the 3. There was a reason why he did that, but I don't know if it's relevant for this conversation, but so, yeah, no, Shannon, the short answer is, I've hated people so much in my life. I'm getting older. I just need to accept things, and even though I don't talk to him now, I just have to start accepting things for what they are. And he's not he is who he is, and I'm not changing him, and so, that's kinda where I'm at, so that's probably why you're not seeing me being so aggressive and stuff. He's made a lotta errors, and I think he has to sleep with that at night.
I just think that the way you've been able to get to that, because people hold on to anger for a very long time. And I mean, I know you're a school psychologist, so I know that you have your own education about processing emotion and different things, but did you work on that or did you just come to that realization?
No, no, I've been in therapy off and on, Shannon, with too many therapists over the time, and I have this routine. About 5 months in, I just get rid of them. That they're kinda we've reached our point. So I think after about 5 therapists and just getting older, and I think I just look at life differently. I think a positive of that is really looking and trying to appreciate the small things in life.
Mhm. So, as you now have 2 kids and you're divorced, for the 2nd time, how have you used any of this information to be a different dad through this process? How has it made your parenting better?
Um, Gosh, that's so many different questions. I think some are good and some are not so good. So the not so good is from my lack of knowledge about my parents and what they, all the screaming and stuff. It wasn't really I had a lot of questions. And so what I find now is I'm too open with my kids, and I want to tell them more. But I've had people in my corner respectfully say, no, 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 no. And more times than not, depending on what the discussion is, they're probably correct. So that would be the bad side of things is I'm too open. The good side is I don't yell at my kids, I don't have to. I think I raised my voice for the first time months ago is because my son was about 50 feet away on a bike and he was falling. So I yelled and it felt weird, but, so that's helped me. I don't need to, like, the disciplining is so different. It's just not like I got yelled at and spanked. I don't yell and I don't spank, so, I'm in the moment more. So I don't use my phone when I'm with them. I'm more engaged. I'm sitting next to them doing something rather than y- you know being aloof. And I go to a lot of my kids' functions as much as I can. So I make my kids a priority, which has been great.
Which is a complete opposite from the way that you were raised, even aside from divorced families, but it just sounds like your dad didn't do any of that, you know? Do you have good
No, he didn't really teach us anything.
do you have good memories of any of the younger years when your parents were together?
I don't necessarily have memories. We went on a trip. I think the year before the Uncle Buck seventh grade situation. So we went on a family trip. I think it was sixth grade. We went to Florida. So I do have vague memories of that. I do, Shannon, but most of the memories they come through pictures, not just off the cuff in my head.
Mhm.
Um, but I do have some, not a lot, but some.
Do you think that when you yourself are contemplating divorce or realizing that you're not in a maybe a healthy marriage, um, do you think you kind of held on longer because you didn't want your kids to go through a divorce, or do you think it didn't factor in?
Yeah, I like that question, Shannon. That absolutely factored into mine. I think if I have one regret, right now with the divorce was not doing it sooner. However, I think I gained some things along the way, that I can live with how long I was with their mom. So 1,000%, I stayed longer because I didn't want that to happen to my kids, even though the situation was different. I just didn't want that. So that kept me in.
So, something you said when you were talking about your kids and how because no one communicated with you, you tend to over communicate. Um, what I would say is my experience of talking to people who have been sharing their stories with me, the kids who have fared better are kids whose parents talk to them. And I do agree with you that there is like an age appropriate way to communicate with your kids and not. But the kids whose parents did not talk to them filled in their own gaps or justified certain behavior or didn't take the life lessons the same way that kids who were talked to and kind of um not they were included in what is going on to a degree that they weren't left shocked, they weren't left with an abrupt adjustment. It's just been interesting to me how I've seen that kids who are at least treated like they can handle some information, provided it's not inappropriate information, because I've also seen much too much information, and then that becomes problematic in a whole different way. Um, so I think that that's
Sure.
actually a really good thing for you that you want to communicate with them. And maybe that you do listen to people who say, okay, reel it in a little bit, but your desire to communicate with them, I think, is probably very helpful for them.
I think it is. I can pick up on my daughter when we have conversations, and poor thing, I think she's just at a spot where if there's any inclination that I'm going to say something not positive about their mom, and vice versa on her mom's side, that she just will kind of remain quiet. She's not going to um, stoke the pot a little bit. She just remains neutral and just kind of is very quiet.
Well, I
It makes me sad, but then it gives me a clue to stop talking.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say when I say communicate, I definitely do not mean talk about the other parent. I would say that that's where kids actually show a lot of impact, is when they discuss how their parents negatively talked about the other parent. And so I just want to be clear when
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree with that.
yeah, that's not. I'm meaning when kids have questions about what happened or when kids are saying like something is difficult, that they're being heard and that they're having, someone is communicating with them about the way that their life is now versus what it was before and the reality of that. Um, so yeah, just to delineate between the
I
different
think I think they're doing a lot better. James had a lot of questions. He was angry at me when I left the house. I think now he understands a little bit like that wasn't dad's choice, and he appreciates how much I'm at the school with him and events, and then just the kids kind of his friends at school saying hi to me and all that. Um, my daughter is she's a little different. You know, she's got anxiety from this. I think she gets has some trust issues, and I feel it angers me that this was placed on her. But you know, I have to just worry about what I can control.
right. Well, and I think, to kind of wrap this up, I do have one more question for you, but I think that that's really the point of this. I mean, at the end of the day, and what I personally realize is when two people get divorced and they have kids, their kids aren't their kids become the ongoing victim of divorce. Parents can go on and get married again. They can have kids again. They can have another essentially chapter of their life where kids are never going to escape their parents' divorce. And so that impact, that massive trauma of a divorce is only compounded by the way that parents then handle everything after that. And so my hope is that the more parents can hear from experiences that they can lessen the impact on the kids, because ultimately kids don't deserve it at all, but they get the brunt of it all because they have to continue to live through it. They have to go back and forth. They have to pack a bag. They have to be in the room with both their parents that feel awkward, all of the things. And so the
Mm,
more aware parents can be, the m- the more likely these kids get to be adults that have less issue because of it. And wouldn't that be a nice thing? And so my last question for you, but you might have already
yeah.
kind of touched on it. I do like to ask, when you look back, you know, is there a positive that you can pull out of this situation? And maybe yours is getting kicked out gave you this relationship with your mom that was very grounding. But is there any other positive that you can see in your life from these experiences as you look back and reflect on who you are now?
Yeah, I think the best thing that ever happened for me was getting kicked out, even though it was for the wrong reasons. Yeah, you need one parent, you need one adult to love you. That's all you need. Um, yeah, I don't know, Shannon. It's
Oh, it's
I, I'm sure I'm sure I benefited. I mean, I have anxiety. I blame what happened to you know my anxiety really heavily started in high school when I was kicked out. And I've never recovered from that, but I don't getting kicked out was, I don't know, I guess you could say a byproduct of the divorce. Um, so I don't know. That just came out of nowhere.
well, I think just your level of awareness too on the ways that it impacted you and how you overcome those is a really big deal. The reality is that kids of divorce are left with lots of impacts, whether it's anxiety or just things that have been made harder because of their life that might have been easier without that additional stress. And so, learning to live with that and coming to terms with it so that you can go on. I mean, obviously, you've been highly educated, you've been successful, you've persevered, you've been completely self-sufficient in what you've done for yourself in your life, and the perspective you have as a school psychologist talking to kids. I mean, you're talking to probably half the kids who have divorced families. So that's a perspective that can be very valuable, I think.
It's really helped. Yeah, my experiences unfortunately have really helped me in my job. I'm definitely grateful for that. Even adults.
Yeah. I mean, that's
What's that?
that's just a huge thing. I think the comfort that you can give someone or their child with this commonality, with this experience is a really valuable thing. And it's unfortunate that it is that is your story. However, if you can use it for good, I mean, what a beautiful thing.
I use a lot to my advantage of relating with just people in general. So I that's been a help. I would wish at my age of 47 the added trials can kind of die down a little bit, but I can use them for advantages going forward.
Well, good. Well, I want to thank you for your time. And I just appreciate your insight and your courage to share. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Shannon. I appreciate you and what you do for people.
Thanks for tuning in. Together we can shape healthier paths for families to do divorce better. See you next time on In Between Them.